national capital that got a brief breather as the rain brought in some respite, but the air quality across Delhi NCR still continues to remain in the poor or the very poor category as per the Central Pollution Control Board. This morning, the AQI in Anand Vihar stood at 282 and RK Puram 220, Punjabi Bagh at 236, ITO at 263. We'll play out a ground report, especially when it comes to this rain that has brought in slight improvement in the air quality.
Well, the change in weather in the national capital because of the light rainfall and the flow of wind, it has brought much relief to the people here in the national capital from the air pollution. Today morning, the AQI level has been recorded over 300, but there has been improvement as far as the visibility is concerned. And on the other hand, the central government, the BJP government, is blaming the state government for its negligence. They are saying that the state government has been very inactive in dealing with the pollution problem here in the national capital, and they are playing with the lives of infants, children, young people and elderly men because of the continuous increase in the AQI level, which has reached into the severe category. There were serious health issues concern that was raising here in the national capital, but because of the rain and wind, the AQI level has dipped, and the state government is also focusing on artificial rain by forming cloud seeding, and they would be trying it on November 20. And as far as the odd and even rationing scheme is concerned, the state government says that the scheme has been postponed, and after Diwali, there would be a review meeting, and on that review meeting, it will be decided whether the odd and even rationing scheme would be implemented here in the national capital or not.
Well, for now, it has been decided that the odd-even scheme that initially was to be activated or operationalized from the 13th till the 20th. For now, it has not been done, as the Delhi government has been saying that the situation, the AQI, which is improved slightly, and a further decision that would be taken upon as far as the situation exists. For air pollution, because it is being said that it may worsen after the Diwali festivities, but the brief rainfall in Delhi has slightly improved the situation, and this decision for now has been reversed. We have Sabyasachi with us on the phone line as well. Sabyasachi, we know for now that from the 13th to 20th, initially the government, Delhi government, which has announced the odd-even scheme, that decision for now has been reversed.
Well, absolutely. See, the decision taken by the Delhi government to implement the odd and even rationing scheme here in the national capital has been postponed, and the Delhi government says that after Diwali they are going to do a review meeting, and post the review meeting they are going to decide whether to implement the odd and even rationing scheme or not, as in many parts of the national capital the AQI level right now has reached around 200 in many areas because of the rain and wind flow as well, and that is the reason why the odd and even rationing scheme has been put on hold as of now. All right,
Sabyasachi. But as far as the implementation of other measures are also concerned, because on at least on 2 occasions, very scathing observations have been made by the Supreme Court.
Well, absolutely. See, the Supreme Court clearly says that the Delhi government shows speed whenever the Supreme Court intervenes, and Supreme Court clearly says that this time around the Supreme Court would not put any sort of measure because it is up to the state government to act. And the Supreme Court, the Supreme Court also tells the Aam Aadmi Party that they react every time the situation is critical. Whereas yesterday Gopal Rai also wrote to Chief Minister of Haryana and Uttar Pradesh to ask the trucks and diesel buses to use the peripheral road and not to enter the national capital until and unless they are carrying essential activities. And to check the stubble burning, flying squads have been set to send to 22 districts of Punjab and 11 districts of Haryana, as decided during the emergency meeting taken by the Cabinet Secretary. And the flying squad comprise officers of the Central Pollution Control Board.
Right. All right, Sabyasachi, thank you very much for those updates. Of course, we've been speaking to the medical care experts as well, what they have to say as far as the rising, how it affects those people already having respiratory illnesses. And of course, when it comes to children and elderly, how badly they have been affected and impacted because of the deteriorating air quality.
As the pollution has increased in the past few days, we're also seeing a lot of respiratory illnesses, cases of that coming in. What are you seeing? What are your observations here?
So this is an annual phenomena we see every year around Diwali time, sometime before and sometime after Diwali. There occurs a few days where you have smog, very high or very poor quality air, with AQI being very high in the very severe range. And that is something which causes increased hospitalization, increased emergency visits, increased requirement of medication in patients who have respiratory problems, heart problems. And we see an almost 20% increase in hospital visits and OPD visits of patients with these problems. And many of them land up in the emergency, in the ward. Some of them land up in the ICU also. And it also obviously leads to worsening of the underlying condition, which can sometimes also lead to mortality.
How severe are these cases? Have you encountered any mortality cases in this year?
Yes, so a lot of patients come with acute worsening, ICU admissions requiring ventilatory support. One must understand that the reason why there's this whole issue is that air pollution is a silent killer. I could argue that this person definitely died of dengue or this person died of COVID because the test would be positive. Pollution causes worsening of an underlying disease. It leads to exacerbation of your lung problems, heart problems, and that worsening leads to your heart problem. So you're going to heart failure or going into respiratory failure requiring ventilatory support. So the evidence or the worsening is more indirect rather than direct. And that is why this debate always has been there, how many people died. But in 2000, a study done in India itself, which was published in the Lancet, which looked at the data from 2017, showed that more than 1.2 million people every year in our country die because of pollution.
What is the long-term impact of pollution, especially when the AQI is in the hazardous category and even when patients are discharged? What are the long-term implications?
So I think that is something which is very important because we always worry about the short-term implication, and there's a huge sort of noise when the air quality is bad and we see this increased admissions and worsening of symptoms or even normal people having chest tightness and cough. But if you look at the AQI in the Indo-Gangetic belt, for most days of the year, the AQI is still not in the acceptable range. And therefore, many people are breathing air which is not of good quality throughout the year. So the long-term impact is especially there in children. It impacts their lung growth, and there's data which suggests that children's lung capacity is less if they're living constantly in an area where pollution level is high. It leads to recurrent infections. It also shows that in the older age group, the chances of developing heart disease is high. Living in an area where pollution level is high is as much a risk factor for heart disease as is smoking or high cholesterol. It also predisposes to brain stroke, dementia, and a lot of other systemic diseases are now being linked to air pollution as far as chronic exposure is concerned, including lung cancer. So I think we must also keep in mind that a lot of problems that one is facing could be because of health-related problem that one is facing could be related to long-term exposure to air pollution in our environment.
So now that Diwali is just around the corner and we're going to see crackers and we will further see the air quality plummet, and despite the rain, it has come as a relief. But what are you expecting post-Diwali?
So a lot depends. So when we look at pollution in this part of the world, that is the Indo-Gangetic plain, two factors play a very important role. One is the natural factors, and that is basically wind velocity, rain, and the temperature. So if there is no wind, there is no rain, and the temperature is low, then a lot of pollution tends to settle at ground level, and we have that smog which lasts for many days because it just doesn't blow away and stays there because there is no wind. The second important factor are the human-related factors. That is related to the emission that happens It could be crackers, it could be increased vehicular traffic. We see a lot of traffic now because of the festive season. It could be crop burning, which happens in northern India. It could be construction-related dusts. All of this actually then is the human factors which produce the pollution, and the natural factors don't allow the pollution to really dissipate, and it stays at ground level. And one is worried that this would happen post Diwali also, leading again to AQI going into the severe or very severe range.
So the Delhi government is also trying to cloud seed and induce artificial rain. What do you think are the impacts of that on health of patients, particularly suffering from illnesses related to pollution?
So these are temporary measures like that can be done to bring down the air pollution levels for a short duration. At a given point in time, this was done in China, in Beijing also. But what we need is a long-term solution. This may provide some transitory sort of improvement in AQI, but this is something which cannot be sustained on a long-term basis, and therefore we need to look at how can we have practical, sustainable solution so that every year the AQI becomes better and better. It's not going to happen in 1 year, and we are able to see that in the next, let's say, 5 years or so, we start having AQI which is significantly better than what we are seeing today.
So what precautions would you be suggesting?
Well, that is Dr. Guleria underlining the fact that this is unfortunately a phenomena that is witnessed year after year when it comes to deteriorating air quality in Delhi. Back after a short break.